pill bottles that you had, do you recall what are the circumstances that you had them in a bag in your car?
The reason I had them in a bag is because sometimes a provider would adjust medications. For example, I do remember Lindsay had a prescription of Ativan, and then a few days later they wanted to increase the dosage because it wasn't effective. So what they would do is they would say, give that old prescription to your husband, he'll discard it, and then continue taking from the new prescription.
When yesterday went through, there were scripts and there were pills with a 30 count, but then there's 27 and 3 were gone, but that's because she wasn't taking her medication. That's not the case. It's what you were told to do, right?
Correct. Without that context, it paints a different picture.
This is day 2 of the Lindsay Clancy trial, and that is the ex-husband's testimony from today. What's interesting about all of this is the fact that the prosecution insisted that they had a bag of pills. The majority of them were full. That is when the defense is asking him about the pill bottles. And as you know, he explained that those were just extras that they had because they continue changing the dosage. And that in fact, there was a drawer full of medication next to the bed that apparently she had taken all of them. Now, the prosecution in the morning goes over what transpired on that day, the fact that he went to CVS. They see him in surveillance walking around getting what he needed. He goes and picks up food, comes home, it's silent. Goes upstairs, opens the master bedroom door. He says that there was so much blood. It was awful. And he looked out the window. Is where he sees her laying outside. He calls 911 and waits for them to arrive. While he's waiting for them to arrive, he asks her where his kids are, and she tells him, well, they're in the basement. At this point, he runs downstairs, and that is when he finds each and every one of them. The prosecution then proceeds to take out what each child was wearing that day, as well as the bands that they had around their neck. The defense starts with the cross-examination, stating that in October of 2022, after they had a great summer, because they showed a lot of pictures of them being happy together, all of a sudden she started to deteriorate. She had increased stress and anxiety. She ends up reaching out to a psychiatrist and said, look, I wasn't really involved at the beginning, just trusted that she was getting the help that she needed. He then states that she was prescribed Zoloft. However, in the wedding that the prosecution talked about, she lets him know, hey, I'm thinking about taking it. This is what I was given. I was just not ready yet because she's breastfeeding. But at this point, she had been up. She's not sleeping, been up for more than 48 hours at a time. She is really unable to function. He was concerned, and that she also shared that she was having scary thoughts. So he thought the best thing was for her to take the Zoloft. They also bring up searches, August of 2022, of suicide, and the defense says, didn't you look up this country singer? He said, yes, that country singer took his own life. And when you search him up, it goes to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the one that has all these supposedly extra links in reference to suicide. And he was like, I imagine so. That is what I searched for, this singer, and that's what's going to pop up. They then talk about the fact that there's a lot of rumors going around, and I've seen it myself in the comments, where they're saying that she was doctor shopping to get medication. Her husband says absolutely not. In fact, the only reason she ended up going to a second doctor because the one doctor or nurse practitioner she was working with ends up leaving the practice. So she stays in the same practice and is assigned to someone else. They then talk about the medication and the fact that we already know she was in fact taking her meds. He said, look, it appeared that she was getting worse. They were affecting her negatively. They were not helping her. She was not getting better. They then share that they were having meetings with her via Zoom. So this clinician or psychiatrist would only meet with her for 20 minutes via Zoom, and that was it. At this point, he decided to go in person to see the doctor with her in December of 2022. She was very sleep deprived. She was anxious. He even saw where there were moments that she would sit on the sofa rocking back and forth. At this point, Lindsay tells doctor, is telling her kind of what's transpiring. She feels like the medication is not helping. And at this point, he even states, look, on December 6th, we tell her or the doctor at this meeting that we don't feel the Seroquel, I believe it's called, is working. So what did the doctor do? She increased the Seroquel, ends up giving her Valium to tape her off of the other drugs, which were benzos. The defense says, was she addicted? Like, was she taking drugs? She was not at all addicted to any type of drugs. They did that for essentially the side effects. After the increase happens, she ends up getting even worse to the point that she decides to go to the Women's Center for Behavioral Health mid-December. He drops her off and he goes skiing with their daughter. Gets a call from the hospital and it's her saying they want to talk to her. They wouldn't allow him to talk or say what the doctor shared, but it seemed as if they were concerned the amount of medications that she had on her system. They felt that it was in the right place for her because she was so medicated. Then they go back home and he said he drove her. She was really scared. At this point, she's going to the next facility. He leaves her at that facility, trying to get her as much help as she possibly could. Sadly, he says, look, I want to see her 2 times. She was coloring. I don't know if she was getting the attention she needed. I can't tell you she saw a doctor more than 1 time. But they then ask him, didn't she try to leave after 5 days because of the birthday? He said, no, it's a 5-day stay. So she was free to leave after 5 days. One of the other things they touch on is the fact that both parents were there in the home trying to help out, trying to help take care of the kids. And then in front of the mom, she proceeds to say that she was having bad thoughts. One of the things that the defense brings up is that he used to travel for work. He left her for 2 days in November, home alone with the kids. The kids were fine. Nothing happened. He also said he used to go out for brunch all the time with your friends. He used to leave her home alone. He was like, yeah. So in any case, if this was premeditated, she really wanted to take the kid's life, she could have done it before then. He agreed. I will tell you, like I said, I don't think the ex-husband didn't even want to be there. He is trying to, I guess, stay as neutral as possible. Talk to you soon.